How long is your lead rope? This one's probably 9 feet long, because I can reach about 8 feet up. How long is your lead rope and how much of it do you use? Because what I see is people will buy 9 feet of lead rope and they use about the first 8 or 10 inches. They're holding their horse up here by the chin and the horse is carrying them around kind of like a dog carrying a package. They got their arm extended and they got all this rope just dangling here. So let's just do it this way. Let's take this rope and we'll see how it works if we cut it down to the size that people actually use. Because the rest of the rope, at best, you're holding it in your free hand. And I think if we actually do this, you'll see just how inefficient this is. And then we'll get out a regular length rope and we'll do that and you'll see how much better it is when you have your horse working off your entire rope. So I'm just going to take about what people tend to use. That's probably a foot. That may be generous. See how sharp my knife is? Now, you might say, this guy's really dedicated to this YouTube thing because he's cutting his rope just for this video. Well, I don't think it's my rope. I kind of think it's Jeff's rope. I think he left it here the last time he was here. And I don't think he's watching these videos that much, so he'll never know the difference. And it's not much of a rope anyway. So just don't tell Jeff, okay? Anybody that's watching this that knows Jeff, don't tell Jeff. Because he'll come after me if if it was his rope, and could be. So this is about what we'll play with. I'm gonna go get a young horse and see what it's like to lead her around by the amount of lead rope that a lot of people tend to use. So we'll be right back with that. And I'm gonna hide this rope in case Jeff comes back for it. So here we are with our lead rope abbreviated to about where a lot of people actually use it. It may even be longer than what some people use because sometimes they're right up here. But I'm gonna hold it where people do and just kind of show how poorly it works, even with a horse that wants it to be pretty nice. This is a yearling filly. I will tell you right off the top that she looks like she just spent the winter crossing the steppes with Attila the Hun. And that's just how my horses live. If you pan out there, Kim, you can show her pasture mate just roaming around the pasture. These horses live out. That's how they want to live. I never really saw how it was a benefit or anything of a favor to a horse to keep them confined to a 12 by 12 stall for 23 or 24 hours a day. Mine live outside. They've got a shed that they can get into. They got about a 6-acre pasture there, and as soon as deer season's over and it's safe, I'm gonna open these 2 up to the big pasture and they'll have another maybe 6-8 acres out there. They're out where they can gallop. They're out where they keep moving around. They can grow up, learn to handle themselves like a young horse should. But this is the way they look. So if you want to see a prettier one, you're going to either have to come back in the spring, look back at our maybe scary objects video and see this mare when she's real bloomy, or go to a channel where they blanket their horses and keep them locked up in a stall, because you ain't going to see it here. So she's being real polite. But imagine if she was swirling around. I've got this little bit of a rope. Suppose I was doing what people do, and I'm saying, oh, well, hey, whoa, pony. You know, whoa, pony. And really what I'm doing is and usually it's in the right hand, of course, but when you walk around like this, you're pulling your horse over on top of you. You can't help it. You think, I've got him held down. No. You don't have him held down. He can lift you up by his neck if he wants to, even a little one like this. What you're doing is you're taking away all of the mechanical advantage from yourself, and you're getting over there and you've got your horse, you're tugging on them the whole time. They start to lay back, they start to drag you around. You got your arm out here extended like instead of the lead rope, you're just using your arm. So you seem like maybe there's a problem. After a bit, the horse may get to thinking there's a problem. You know, and if there is a problem, how do you deal with it? Well, most people just choke up tighter. And that, you may as well just, this one's got some whiskers, you may as well just grab her by the whiskers and hang on. And if the horse really flies apart, and this filly, unfortunately for the video, is really pretty nice and pretty polite. But if she was flying around, and I'm holding on her by that, it's gonna make your arm as long as the lead rope should be. And I got long arms anyway. I don't need 9-foot arms. They'll pull your shoulder right out of the socket when you're up like that. And if you want to teach your horse to walk on top of you, use the 6-inch lead rope, because look where it brings her. This poor thing doesn't even want to do that because it's not the way she was trained. She's trained to have a little bit of respect. But when you're leading them around like this, you're drawing them over on top of you. You're holding them and you're pulling their head over against you. And to her, this is really troubling. Imagine if she wasn't trying to be reasonable. And what people tend to do is to go to this position with the horse that is a bit unreasonable. So I've got another rope over here, and I'm gonna go take Jeff's lead rope off and put my own on. Now this rope is longer than you need, which is okay. It's about a 14-foot rope that you can use when you're really working with your horse. I like a lead rope that's about 10 feet long anyway. It gives you a little bit more scope, but you don't need anything as long as this just for day-to-day work. This does not have a snap, which is fine. I'll just take it back through itself. It's got an eyelet braided in it. It makes a pretty nice little rig. And pull that tight, and it's down on the loop on the halter. So this poor thing's thinking, what in the world, you gonna come up there by the chin? See, because this would be what you'd be doing, like this. And I've got all this rope, I'm just tripping over it. You may as well put it to use. So how do you get your horse to learn the distance or the length of your lead rope? You want to have your horse to where you can move them to the end of that rope. So I do a very simple thing, and that is, I call it jiggling their face. I'll just go like this. Now see, she's a little numb to that. Hadn't been done to her for a while. So I'll go. As soon as she starts going back, I say, good, you know. I want her to know where the end of that lead rope is. When you've jiggled their face, watch where her attention goes. But see, she wasn't told to move. You need to substitute brute strength, which you don't really have, for discipline, to get the horse to where they do what you ask them to do, because it's in their mind. It's not just your body trying to work on theirs. So you want them to learn to have some composure. You can tell she's relatively relaxed. I think I'm boring her a bit. That's okay. I want this young horse to feel relaxed, but I want her to be ready as well. So I haven't asked her to move her feet. She doesn't need to move her feet. I should be able to walk all around her. I should be able to drop that line and walk around her. And if I want to lead her, I'm going to walk off. And let's suppose that I want her to lead at the end of the rope. I'm not going to move my feet. I'm going to move her right with the rope. And then if I want to lead her out there, I want her to keep that distance. And when I stop, she stops, and she crept forward just a little. So I'm going to rattle her face around a little till she steps back. And they can get real sharp at this. I will tell you what my yearling program is. And it's based on the program of the great Bob Loomis, who is a really great horseman, raised a lot of good horses, lived on a big ranch. Somebody said, "What's your program with your yearlings?" He said, "My program is I look at them through binoculars." That's a little bit what I do with these yearlings. I handle them enough that they're safe to be around, that they're pleasant to be around. They're going to have a life of work. They get till they're coming to learn to be horses. Whoa. Now I'm going to tell her that she can follow me, and she follows that feel, see? She knows the difference between me walking around and me asking her to come along, because I took a little feel on that rope. And she's going to keep that distance right where I asked her to. And then if I see her doing that, not paying attention, I'll just rattle her a little bit. And if I want to send her over, I want to do it off a feel. You hear a lot of people talking about body language. Absolutely, body language is useful, but you ought to be able to have your horse operate off the feel on the end of the halter. And of course she could be sharper at that, but I can hardly tell you how little I've done with this filly. And she says, that's okay with me. If she was wilder, I would do more with her. But since she's very agreeable, and her pasture mate Mike likewise very agreeable, good-minded horses, came from a good place, the Open Box Rafter Ranch, you can get away with not drilling these horses. And when the time comes to put them into training, their minds will be blank slates and she can really put something on. But I want her to just stand there like a lady. You do so much with your horse when you do nothing at all. When you just ask him to stand or ask him to do something simple. And a lot of times people will say, I'm going to groundwork my horse now. Well, every time I lead this thing in from the pasture, I'm doing groundwork. I'm making sure she stays polite. I'm making sure she stays focused on me. And she's just keeping an eye on me, and that's what I want her to do. So, standing still is important. So what I'm going to do while I'm standing there still, I'm going to tell you a little story, because this horse here typifies this. There's a pretty nice horse under that hair. And with a little condition, you'd say, oh, that thing looks like she should go to a horse show, instead of like she could go, you know, just live in a snowbank. When I was a young guy, my mentor of mentors was a fellow known universally as Pony Bill Wagman. He was so well known by that name and by his dealings with ponies back at a time when ponies were worth something, that I remember him getting mail one day, and he comes in, he's sort of chuckling. He had an envelope that had got the whole way through the Postal Service to him. It was addressed to Pony Bill, Red Lion, PA. No other address, no other name. That was all you needed to get that through to Pony Bill. Try that these days. But back at that time, with his notoriety, anybody at the postal office in that area knew who he was, and they got it to his doorstep. So see, while I'm running my mouth, I'm also checking on her to make sure she doesn't check out. And she began to move around a little bit. So the pony business had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It really dropped off a cliff. But while there was still a little life in it, I went to a sale with Bill. He was a trader. That was his thing. And what he'd often do is he'd buy a horse or a pony, clean it up. I mean, we brought all sorts of equipment with us, and then he'd run it back through the sale later. He'd either purchase it early in the sale or purchase it out back in the parking lot. then bring it back through the sale. So we go there, and there's a Shetland pony, decent sized pony, hairy, burrs in its mane, looked disgraceful, sort of a nice silvered apple color, but there was a lot of hair on it. But it was spring of the year, it was shedding, nobody even bothered to brush it off. And there was a farmer let him in and said, I want to breed ponies, and I got this stud pony here. He is the plainest thing. I just want rid of him. And so old Bill says, well, you can take him and wait for the sale, or you could just sell him to me. The fellow says, I'll take $100. Bill said, I'll give you 80. Done. Then we get to work, and we comb out this long white mane and strip out the bad pieces. We take about a bushel basket full of hair off of this thing. We get back there and trim his feet up. We clip him all under his chin, and we get all the hair off we can. We can't body clip him, but we get him to where he's really looking pretty neat. And put a little bit of grease and goo on him to lay down some of that hair, and he's looking better and better. There's a kid back there, actually not a kid. He was a real small guy. I don't know what the right word is these days for little people, and I probably get in trouble. He was either a midget or a dwarf. In fact, he was so little he could have been a midget dwarf. But he was strong as a man. He was probably 20, 22 years old. His name was Jimmy. And Jimmy would ride ponies through the sale because he had a man's strength and skills, but he looked like a kid. And people would say, oh, what a wonderful pony. And it was really just Jimmy cowboying up. So this pony never had a rider on his back. Jimmy throws his little old saddle on. We chase him up and down the barn aisle, get him sort of guiding, and he is broke to ride for the sale. So through the sale he goes, and it lights up. And it goes to 100, then 120, then 200. Pony sells for $800. Not a bad day's work. But oddly enough, old Pony Bill seems a little troubled. He said, you know, I don't think I'm going to wait around for my check. They'll send it to me, or I can pick it up next week when I come. I said, whoop. See, that's why I'm telling stories. She needs to learn patience. We all do. So I couldn't understand why he wanted to get out of there so bad. I said, Bill, we were working all that time. I'd like to stay and watch the sale. He said, no, I think we better go. And I sort of seemed a little disappointed. He said, listen, kid, we probably ought to leave because the same guy who sold me the pony bought him back. He didn't recognize him, and he thinks this is his new stud. He's going to figure it out by and by, and he's a big, nasty man, and I don't want to be there when he does. So I agreed at that point. We packed up, went home. Never heard anything more from the man or the pony. Maybe he never figured it out. But the fact is, he knew so little about his own animal that he couldn't see through it to see there was a pretty nice pony underneath there. Maybe what we did for him was let him see he had a nice one, and he went right on with him. But you need to look through this stuff and not get over-invested in it, because it's not what the horse is made of. It's a lot deeper than hair. So that's a story about my old friend Pony Bill, who taught me a lot of things about life and a few things about horses. She's finding this whole process pretty casual. Go on, get back. Okay, she's a little too casual. I just need her to stand off there. And now, after she's been standing, I want to see if she still has a feel to her. Yeah. So that's real life. And that's why I'll spend a little time running my mouth, partly because I just like to talk, but partly because that's where you actually build your horse, is when you come and go with them, give them a little time to think and to soak. So that is a very simple way to get your horse respectful, to get them to back off, to get them to let you to use your whole lead rope, to get them to where if you want to lead them back here, you could. Or if you said, well, I want to move you past me, you could probably do that too, just off a feel. And if you choose to come in here and lead them closer, you don't want them intimidated, you want them to come right along with you. You want to be able to pick your spot, because different circumstances may call on you to have your horse a different distance from you. One thing that I noticed that I thought was very clever that Chris Cox showed us at a clinic one time, he would lead a horse like this. He would actually have, let me get this right, his loose end of the rope across his body. That way, if the horse got on top of him or ran by him, he had this rein, this hand ready to move the horse, instead of having the other hand out there. I mean, when you think about it, that's not a bad process. So I'm leading her off here. I've got it in my left hand, but if she would lean on me, I've got my right hand ready to activate and to move her away. So that's a little strategy that you might use with a horse that intends to lean on you or blow by you. So that's just a little lesson for this girl today. You can tell that she's not troubled by it. She's not particularly sharp at it. I haven't tried to get her overly sensitive. I just want her aware and alive and relaxed, so that you can move her like that, step her hip back, take her the other way. And I'm not running all over the place to do it, because I'm using my whole lead rope and I'm working off a feel. So I'll brag on her. She's being a nice girl. I didn't do anything too rude. And maybe you like the story about Pony Bill. So that's today's episode. Till next time.